Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. I have Nia Akins joining me on the podcast today. Nia, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
No, thanks for having me.
For sure. So the first question has sort of become a bit of a standard here. And the question is, who is Nia?
Who is Nia? I am a recent grad from the University of Pennsylvania. I studied nursing and nutrition, and now I am just a professional runner at the moment. And loving it so far. I run professionally for Brooks Beast Track Club based in Seattle, Washington. It's been a big change, but adapting slowly.
That's awesome. So given that this is a running podcast, I like to sort of set the stage around the guest's entry into running. So do you remember your first run?
I don't, but I imagine it was probably with my mom. My mom ran in college. She ran for the University of Missouri and was quite good. She ran the 400 meters. I don't even think I've beaten her in that distance yet, time wise. So I really have some work to do. But yeah, she runs recreationally now. And it was probably race wise. I think I've done a couple 5Ks with my mom. Probably in middle school. Yeah.
And then at what point did you realize you were, pretty good at it?
When I started to beat my mom in 5Ks, or when we would finish together and she'd say, you could, you might have a future in this. And I honestly ignored her for multiple years and came back to it in high school. I picked up running again to stay in shape for soccer, but I just enjoyed it so much more. I love the team. I love the culture, and kind of shifted over during cross country actually in high school. And then as soon as I was introduced into track, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So, yeah.
What was it about track that you loved so much?
I think the shorter distances. And I also really enjoyed being able to run a race and also enjoy watching other races, watching my friends compete, seeing different events. I really enjoyed making a day out of it. I love cross country and I love that we can all be together for a race, but it is kind of nice to sit and relax and enjoy the sport as much as I'm competing too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the camaraderie and all of that is one of the things that people love so much, and it's been hard this year where much of that has been stripped away.
It has, definitely, yeah.
So you mentioned you got back into running in high school, and then you ran at Penn. What was the difference between high school and college for you?
I think transitioning from high school to college, I actually really enjoyed being able to structure my own time, figuring out my class schedule and working around that, showing up at practice and being present there. I don't know. I just really enjoyed the close proximity of everything. And, when we went on team trips, it was more like they were bigger trips. We would leave the state and go somewhere we would take a bus. And I think I got to know the team a lot more and got a lot closer to the team in college than I did in high school because we just did more, we competed more, and we were under more pressure than we were in high school. And that really does bring people together. So, yeah.
I love that. I think that that we're in this together, we're doing it. Mentality is sort of, it can definitely bring people together, as you said. So it's now 2020 and you've joined the Brooks team out in Seattle. What was the What was the trajectory like, or what was the experience like for you going from being an NCAA athlete into becoming a professional runner?
Yeah, definitely a unique transition because it is 2020. It's still 2020, still going strong in 2020.
We're almost there.
It's been a long year. um, yeah, so it was a huge leap of faith. There was a lot of silence on the pro signing front, and I think my agent and I kind of sat in that silence and we're kind of waiting to see, what other people were doing. I have a great agent. Ray Flynn is amazing. He really helped me through the process, as did my college coach. So I think I was really lucky on that front, having a lot of people to help navigate through that time. And signed my contract, moved to Seattle, jumped right into training. And because it is 2020 and there was nothing happening with racing, we kind of decided that, we were going to shorten the transition time. It's usually a little bit more of a gradual progression into the pro training. It was, as soon as I got there, it was like we were just experimenting with things, trying new things, really getting me into the program honestly as quickly as possible. And I really enjoyed that. I think the team is fantastic. They really helped me along the way. There were a couple races, there were definitely a couple hiccups, but I definitely took advantage of the fact that it is 2020. If there's ever a time to experiment, to push my limits, figure out, what changes I can make with training, what things should definitely be the same, now's the time. So I definitely got lucky there.
What are some of those changes that you experimented with
Yeah.
besides
So,
moving cross country and working with a new group?
yeah. So I actually ran cross country all 4 years in college. And I didn't really do too much focused middle distance work in the fall. Not like what I'm doing now. It's still not a lot, but it's very different. Not working so much on. It's not like every workout is endurance every single week. But that said, we've definitely pushed the boundaries on what I thought was possible for me mileage wise. I'm a little bit higher now. Cross training more, just putting more work in, honestly, because I have the time now. And yeah, I think my coach really loves trying different types of workouts on the track too. So early on, I don't remember the exact names, but we just did a ton of just different stuff like every single week. And it was kind of cool to see it all kind of string together to this really cohesive, beautiful training block that I was able to get back into shape for a couple races there. So it was nice.
Yeah, it's been so interesting to see how people have approached 2020. Some are just, scaling back and just doing the fundamentals, and others are sort of forging forward and testing limits and testing boundaries and maybe taking risks that you might not take when there are a lot of races.
Yeah.
I know personally, I've been basically going consistent for 9 months, and I'm fitter than I've ever been before. And it's
Ooh.
just it's like a nice, it's a nice reminder that like there is no shortcut to getting fast and strong and fit. It's just mile after mile after mile. I was talking with Neely Spence Gracie about this, and I think she's 30, and she's like, the last time that I had a break or I had a base period like this was high school.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
it's super cool so that's what, 12 years later, um, at least. So it's cool, like what can happen when you just string mile after mile after mile together.
It really is. It really is. This is definitely like when will we get another opportunity like this? So
Right.
might as well just make the most of it.
Have you struggled with motivation at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten really into running more miles, but I've also gotten really into eating pizza and
it's
kind
it's
of
a
letting go in some
it's a
aspects
pretty
of life.
positive association there. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think I was missing out on a lot of things. I read this article about how Shelby Houlihan was like, you know what, my first instinct was to go for the candy. And I was like, man, I feel you. Like
Yeah.
that was my first instinct too. And I think it'll take me a little bit longer to kind of transition into, getting back into the swing of things entirely. But it has been really nice to really relax. And I think it's important from a psychological standpoint too. Like, you can't be on all the time, and especially at a time like this, just like give yourself a break, and figure out how to do it in a smart way. Um, so yeah, I've definitely had some fun outings for ice cream, and not really outings, more so ordering food in, and
Takeout.
and pizza with some of the girls on the team. So that's been fun.
Do you think those are things that you'll intentionally try to continue with? Like, not saying eating pizza and ice cream all the time, but outings involving, giving yourself the liberty to eat or do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that's always been something that I've done. But it was more so like after a race, that was great. Okay, let's go get ice cream. Well, there's no racing. There's just really hard workouts all the time. So I think I kind of have to remind myself, like, okay, I did reward myself once I did well in a race, but we're not doing that right now. So how else can I reward myself, or like at what checkpoints do I want to hit, and then I go do this, or I reward myself in this way in order to stay motivated and keep going. Because I think giving yourself a break and acknowledging what you've done is a huge part of being able to continue to do what you want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I find the sustainability aspect interesting. So, what I do professionally or for work is personalized guidance on nutrition. So, looking at blood work to understand what does somebody need. So, you would think that someone like that is like, oh yeah, you got to eat perfectly all the time. That was my take initially, but as the years have gone on, I've gotten like much looser with I don't want to say restriction, but um, like allowing myself to eat whatever I want, pizza and ice cream and cake and all
Yeah.
this stuff. And I've found that like as I do that, just things get better from a
Yeah.
from a mental standpoint, but also, like I said, physically, I'm fit and I'm fitter now than I was when I was. And it's like it's a touchy subject. I don't want to say I was restricting, but I wasn't not restricting.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's very interesting to see how that all comes together. And what you study is actually very interesting. The whole blood work thing is very new for me. In college, I dabbled in it a little bit, but definitely pro runners are way more into the blood work and figuring out what you need. So, yeah, that's awesome.
So you have a BS in nutrition from Penn. Do you
Yeah.
use what you learned? Do you use what you learned, or how do you use what you learned there?
Interestingly, I think it really helps with the basics. I learned clinical nutrition as it relates to nursing, as it relates to disease states, more
Mm,
so than, you know,
sports
and
nutrition.
traditional nutrition
Yeah.
that's for a normal person. Honestly, professional athlete, you're not a normal person. Your micronutrient turnover is insane. You need way more protein. Even, what I learned in nutrition, the protein needs for athletes, like what I'm learning, what I'm learning now, like what I need, it's way more than even that.
Right.
So I definitely had to kind of not necessarily throw away everything that I learned, but recognize that I'm very different. My needs are very different, and also everybody's needs are very unique. That's another thing too. I think just for the sake of time and just a very easy way to teach nutrition, because it was within the nursing school, was to kind of teach it by disease. So for cancer, this is the nutrition. For diabetes, this is the nutrition. And it was kind of like treated as a collective group. I didn't have so much clinical work as to see how that differs patient to patient. So I think now kind of individualizing nutrition is very new to me. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been exciting.
Cool.
Very different.
Um, what what was your initial interest in that field of study?
Yeah, I honestly took a couple, like one nutrition class earlier in nursing. It was required, and I just really enjoyed it and I wanted to learn so much more about it. And we have a lot of brilliant nutrition professors at Penn, and it aligns very well with the nursing degree. So, it was something that I was just interested in, nothing that I really wanted to pursue professionally. And it's a great adjunct to nursing. And I found in clinicals, I was able to help my patients more, and kind of understand their labs more as well. So, yeah, it's just something that I was just really interested in that just worked out really well for what I was doing in nursing and also running too. So worked out great.
Cool. Where did the interest in nursing come from?
I get asked that question a lot, and I honestly don't really know. I just always was interested in science and in medicine. It was something that, to be quite honest, didn't come natural to me. I had to work really hard to start to understand it in middle school and high school, but I really enjoyed doing it. And I just really like helping people. So I think just nursing just seemed like a natural, and I like to stay busy too. I really enjoyed the fact that, as a freshman or a sophomore, I could already be in the hospital going through clinicals. I think that's something that's pretty unique to nursing education is you kind of jump right in at first. And that's, I kind of have that personality. So it was a great way to start medicine for me. So yeah.
Cool. And it sort of parallels the pro experience as well. You've jumped right in to training as a professional athlete at potentially the most interesting time to be a professional athlete.
Yeah,
I don't know if
definitely.
interesting is the right word, but tumultuous or maybe interesting. So what was your expectation when you turned pro, or did you have any expectations?
Yeah, I had a dream that, you know, we hopefully we win NCAA 800. We move on to the Olympic trials. Hopefully, we clinch that last spot. If not, just place really high, sign there, and then move forward. And that just did not happen at all. But I visited Brooks in the winter before the spring of 2020. Um, so like 2019 December, so last year this time, honestly, exactly this time. And I absolutely loved it here. So Brooks was already on my radar for a while, and I just really enjoyed just the presence that the team had. I remember like being so concerned that as a professional athlete that running wouldn't feel the same. I wouldn't feel like I'm on a team anymore because that's just what you associate college with. And I honestly worried that because it'd be a profession that I wouldn't be happy doing it anymore. I'd be stressed about it. And when I was on my visit here, I remember thinking everybody here is just so happy. And I want to be that happy. Like that's my goal for the whatever's next. I just want to be this happy. And that was a huge reason why I decided to come here. So yeah.
I think it must be in the contract because it's run happy is the is the motto,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true. I didn't even plan that. Yeah.
They must have just picked the happiest people for
They just embody it so well. They really do. So, yeah.
So but besides happy, what has the team meant to you so far?
So far, I mean, this is obviously like what I experienced was different from, graduating kind of online, doing everything online or whatever, but it's new to everybody. No matter who you are, you're affected by this. And I think coming here, we have weekly meetings and you could just sense that, everybody's kind of just working through it and trying to be as positive as they can from the beginning. And that's something that I really needed to be a part of. And I think it honestly saved me from going into this hole where, like, I don't want to train, I don't want to do anything because, there's nothing going on. I could have quickly lost motivation in the situation that I was in. Any of us could have, but I think we kind of like leaned on each other. And, I don't know, working together has been really fun. everybody has a very unique story as to how we got to this point, but we're all in it together now. So, yeah, it's been nice to still have that sense of team, and to get to know the team extremely well. We're basically quarantined together. So I feel like I've been on the team forever, and it's only been like 6 months.
Got it. Cool. So I had the chance to chat with a couple of the newest members of the Northern Arizona Elite team, and the questions that I asked them seemed to resonate with the audience. They were curious to hear more about what you hope to bring to the team, and what. We'll start there. What do you hope to bring to the team?
Yeah, I've actually got asked that question a couple times since I've been here. I guess I just hope to bring kind of a fresh perspective. I think my answer would have been different before 2020, but I think kind of being, a 2020 grad, it just kind of hits different when you're a senior, whether it's high school or college, and just kind of having pretty much everything you work towards in the past 4 years outside of running, just kind of, you don't get those experiences back. So I think just coming in and just kind of being really real with people, and just being like, look, like we could work really hard and something could happen and we just don't get what we wanted. That has nothing to do with what we put into it. So like we might as well just like make the best of each day. Like have fun, but also, live life, have fun, but also, work really hard and work towards our goal. And I think finding that balance, is something that I wanted to bring to the team. And then when I got here, it was kind of like everybody's figuring that out, and everybody's bringing that in a different perspective on that exact idea. So it's been fun.
Is gratitude something that you practice intentionally? And you alluded to it a little bit there, but is it something that you do practice intentionally?
Yeah, we are so lucky, and we as a team decided that gratitude was one of the values that we wanted to embody. We kind of made a list, and that was really high on the list. We are so fortunate to be a part of a brand that cares about us. Hasn't changed how they feel about us despite during this pandemic. They're still supporting us in every way possible, which is just really rare, and we're so lucky. And it's important to remember that despite everything that's going on. So yeah, gratitude's definitely up there for me and for all of us.
What are some tips for somebody who might be interested in getting into practice related to gratitude? And the reason I ask is it's something I talk about a lot on the podcast, and it seems to be a common trend amongst successful people that they're not just looking forward all the time, but they're also mindful of where they've come from and what they have or don't have in that moment. And I think that no matter what your current status is, there's always something to be grateful for, and it's a way to take control in any situation. So, with that as the frame, what would be your tips for how to get started?
Yeah, my mom actually tells me all the time that in order to get to the next level, you have to be happy with where you are currently. And, if I don't have a great race, that's the first thing she'll say is like, well, your attitude beforehand, like you weren't happy with training, you weren't happy with, what you were doing, you weren't happy with, the weather or whatever it was. She's like, you gotta just step up to the line and play the card you're dealt, essentially. And I think when I really started to believe that, and no matter what was going on, just be like, look, this is all a part, the weather, circumstances be what they be. Like, I'm here and I need to be present where I am. And I think, we do a lot of breathing exercises here, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with like being present in the moment and being gracious. And I think that can tie into gratitude. But I think a huge part of it too is just surrounding yourself with the right people. Like my college coach and my coach now, they just do a really good job of of just acknowledging good training and acknowledging good work, and and saying, what, you're ready for this, and just being honest with where we are, which is really important too. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that quote that you shared from your mom. In order to get to the next level, you have to be happy with where you are at currently. I think a lot of people get stuck thinking about what's next or where they're going to go, or
Yeah.
and if that's the focus, you can never you'll never win short term. A story that I share a lot on this podcast is for 4 years I tried to break 3 hours in the marathon, and I was not happy with not doing it. And I was never, the race was always the test. It wasn't the celebration. And I didn't achieve that goal until the race became the celebration and not the test. And so I
Yeah.
think that like that's the perfect epitome of, you need to be happy with where you're at now in order to celebrate that and then move forward.
I would have to agree, and that's an amazing milestone too, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, I definitely have to agree.
So, sort of a parallel to that. Let's fast forward 10 years. What are you really proud of accomplishing?
10 years, I will be older than 30. I will surprise
Ancient.
myself. Yeah, I will surprise myself if I'm still running.
Why is that?
I I honestly don't know. I think there's a lot of things that I want to do in life. And I kind of, honestly, if you asked me 4 years ago that I would be here today running professionally, I would not have thought that I would be doing this. So, I mean, I guess who knows? I think I just want to be proud of where I am. I definitely want to feel like if I'm done with running, if I'm still running, that my heart's still in it. And also, too, definitely, I don't know when exactly I'm going to start working as a nurse. I've been taking my time with it because I really want to do exactly, I don't want to just pick up any nursing job. I want to do exactly what I want to do, and I want to make sure it aligns well. We're traveling all the time. I want to make sure I'm in something that I can stick with. And I hope to also grow professionally there too. So we'll see.
So you said something there that was really interesting. If I'd asked you this question 4 years ago, you wouldn't have imagined that you'd be running professionally.
Yeah, no chance.
So here we are. It's December of 2020. Why are you running professionally?
Yeah, I think it was a very slow growth process. It was one of those pipe dreams, like, it was like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pirate when I grew up, and that lasted until I realized that I couldn't actually be a pirate when I would grow up. It still felt that's what running
Oh, with that
professionally
attitude.
felt like. Yeah, that's what running professionally felt like for most of high school and some of college, and just like slowly the time started going down, and after Boston, I realized that it was possible, like very possible. And that was just so recent. So I think it's still very surreal that I'm even here. And I think, it'll take some time to feel more secure that in my position as a professional runner now. But it all happened so fast that I honestly don't have words for this answer. But I'm very grateful to be here. And looking forward to what's next, I guess. So
Something that comes up often with Olympians and world record holders and amateurs and everyone in between is the idea of what is the word I'm looking for? I just had it. Imposter syndrome. Has that ever been a factor for you?
what do you mean? In what sense?
So, are you familiar with the phrase?
I'm not actually.
Maybe I shouldn't dive into it then. No, it's sort of it's sort of when people are feeling like they're like too, like maybe they don't deserve where they're at. You see this with, like I said, a lot of Olympians or people that are at the top of their field, and it's usually not it's not accurate. Like you deserve to be there. You absolutely deserve to be there. But it's the like, why me? Why am I the one that's super good? And so I guess that's a poor way to explain it. But it seems to be common.
That makes
So
sense. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
we runners are such a humble bunch, to be honest. Like, we know how much work it takes to run a good time, to put down a good mark. And we know that, whoever's done it, like, there's miles behind that.
right.
Or there's, like, they put in work to get there. So I think compared to other sports, I think it's definitely makes sense that it's more common with running. For me personally, I resonate with that. I think more from um, just kind of a position of being a believer and just where I sit with faith. That it's just almost like nobody really deserves anything. It's kind of given to them, but they don't deserve it, if that makes sense. It kind of ties into that gratitude. You just receive it and you kind of make the best of it. So I think that's where that comes from, for sure. But yeah, I think because we are runners and we are a humble bunch, I think that helps us honestly achieve way more on the track, than we think possible, ironically. I think when you toe the line with that much humility, you can really surprise yourself. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Talk to me about how your faith plays a role in your training and day to day.
Yeah, it's saved me for through 2020 because you gotta believe in something. Um, so I think, you know when everything got canceled, we like literally just landed in Albuquerque, and they told us to go home because the meet was canceled for indoor nationals. And instantly I was like, this is God's plan. You know what? Something's going to come of this. Even if it's not, I honestly told myself, even if it's not running, like even if running's not it for me, there's a purpose to everything. There's a reason for everything. And eventually that will be revealed. So I think I just held on closely to that and, just really prayed over every decision I made, especially with signing a contract and just doing anything in this kind of rare time. I think it's really nice to have something to believe in, and yeah,
Especially when that belief is in yourself, right?
yeah. I honestly, I've never really drawn on believing in my. This sounds really sad. I've never really drawn on believing in myself. I've always kind of drawn on my faith to get me through things and my team in college. So I was very protective of making sure that wherever I was going next, I wanted to make sure that I really felt like I was on a team, so I could still draw on that strength. So yeah,
I think the team aspect is still understated in so many different ways. I
yeah,
think that you've seen what athletes can do when they say, oh, I was doing it for my teammate, or I was just there for my friend, or, my training partner, or something like that. And I think that um, our minds limit us when we're doing something on our own. But if you're doing something for somebody else, I think that you're capable of more. But
you really are. Yeah,
I think that like as humans, we're capable of more than we think. So it's so interesting that um, shifting that focus to somebody else allows you to accomplish more yourself.
yeah. I would have to agree. I think having a healthy team environment means a lot. Like for the first time last week, I think since I've been here, all five of the Brooks women worked out together. It's just kind of, we all run different events, and there's been some hiccups along the road, so that's just really rare. And in the first, we were doing mile repeats, and I did not finish the first rep. because I just knew, I was like, this is going to be too much. But because I had the team there, and all 5 of us were together, I could just like draw on that. I was like, you know what, when is this going to happen? Like, when is this going to happen again? Like, I have 4 training partners and we're all fit and we're all running really well. And I honestly can tell you there's no way I would have gotten through those repeats if it wasn't for the team. And that's the fastest I've ever done mile repeats in my lifetime. So it really is, being a part of a team really is something. Yeah.
So how do you take that and apply it when you are training on your own?
Yeah, I think like fear made me fast. Because in college I trained on my own a lot. It was more so like, okay, if I'm going to be with my team again, or if I'm going to be running a relay, I want to make sure I can still contribute in some way, shape, or form. I don't want to fall behind. So I think when I'm training on my own, I kind of think like, okay, when I'm back together with my team, I want to make sure like I fit like kind of like a puzzle. Like we're all like we're individual pieces in a puzzle that kind of fit together perfectly. And like if I'm not doing my part from a training standpoint, that doesn't work. Even if we don't toe the line together ever, if we're not in the same event or the same relay group, like at Brooks, like we all rep the same brand. We're a part of the same company. You know, we want to embody that spirit. So even that's really important, showing up and being positive. And yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it's a way to hold yourself accountable to more than just yourself.
Yeah.
What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started running?
Um, I think it kind of ties into what we've been talking about. Just if I step to I think I forget it. I know it, but I also forget it sometimes, especially when I'm on the line. It's like I have to be happy with where I am if I want to get to the next level. I think I had a good grasp of that going in at the start of 2020 and the first couple races I ran. And then, you know, I ran a couple races over the summer and I just run 2 flats. I was like really close. And, you know, there were huge hiccups in training just from transitioning and everything. We were experimenting, but, you know, I just thought, you know, like I'm not happy with a 2 flat. I really want to break 2. And I think, you know, like you said, I wasn't celebrating myself like on the line. I wasn't like, look, this is where I'm at. You know, let's see what we're made of. Let's see if we can, you know, we could run faster. That's great. It was more like I was just pushing, trying to get past this time, trying to get past everything that was going on. And I think that's why I had some wishy-washy races this summer. And that's something that like I know going into next year, like, you know, I got to get over everything that happened and like be happy with where I am right now, despite everything that's going on, and toe the line, you know, ready for, you know, just be happy to be racing. And, you know, kind of hope for the best. Cause I think, I mean, you only PR when you're present. And honestly, sometimes when you're not expecting to PR is usually when it happens. When you're not paying attention to the clock, a lot can happen too. So yeah.
I love that you only PR when you're present. My coach would definitely agree.
Yeah.
A word you've referenced a number of times, and particularly in the last couple of minutes, is happiness.
Yeah.
What does happiness mean to you?
Um, Happiness to me, I think it's definitely transient. It comes and goes. Like anything can affect anything can affect your mood. But I think it's I don't know, there's 2 layers to it for me. There's what's on the surface, which is kind of what I mentioned, like transient, you know, comes and goes. And then just like at the core, it's like who you are. Like, are you a glass half full or are you a glass half empty person? And I think it's very easy to actually, I don't think it's easy to change. I think it takes time, but I think, you know, for me, it comes from, like I mentioned earlier, just kind of like from a position of faith and just, you know, I'm always going to be a glass half full person at heart. um, but, you know, it's kind of like on a good day, who I am in my core and, what's on the surface, when those match up, like a lot of magical things can happen. So that's something that I continually strive for. And I think being in a good environment definitely helps with that. So.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think I think that is the recipe for success. The presence or mindfulness or gratitude in the moment is, as we talked about, so powerful. Um, what do you do, or maybe it's not possible, but when you realize that you're not being present, is there a way that you pull yourself out of it?
Um, Honestly, I have not, the times that I have been conscious of not being present.
It's like a misnomer, I guess.
Yeah, I think
I guess it can't really happen.
I think all summer I kind of knew that I wasn't present,
Yeah.
but it took me, like, I just never really could pull myself out of it, to be honest. But there were times earlier, actually, yeah, there were times earlier in the year where I felt overwhelmed. I wasn't present. I, was nervous right before Boston, actually, which was where I ran the 2 flat, and was a huge reason why I am where I am now. Super lucky. But I cleansed myself of everything because I knew I was like, I don't think I listened to music that week. Um, I like took down, everybody's going to think I'm crazy. I like took down everything on in my room, I took down all the posters and everything, which is like running stuff, like all my numbers and stuff, and just kind of went back to what it looked like when I first got there. And just was super simple for a week. And I think just before I ran, I kind of like added elements back in, like I added like some music back in and stuff like that. And I think it reminded me of who I was, I think, kind of cleansing myself like that. And taking a break from everything, taking a step back and coming back into it it's very refreshing. And it's honestly what I'm doing now. I knew that worked for me then. So I'm doing the same thing now and hoping to go into 2021 with a really great mindset. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. So you referenced this race in Boston. You had. I think it's being understated. Was it not the second fastest 800 in all of indoor history?
Yes, it was.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was pretty
What
cool at the time. But
what was
to what we've been saying, when I learned that the number one time was like point oh 0.01 or 2 off of what I ran, instantly I was like, I'm not happy with where I am right now. I got to get better. And I think, again, I had to remind myself, like, okay, like this is really cool. I need to be here. I need to acknowledge this, celebrate it if I even want to consider, you know,
yeah.
breaking the record. Like, unfortunately, things kind of blew up after that, but I am proud of myself for acknowledging that before potentially towing the line again. So
And that was one of the last races. Definitely one
yeah,
of the last indoor races
that was my
back
last
in
8
back
of
in
college.
February.
Yeah.
A question. So switching gears a little bit. Um, a question I like to, or a topic I like to talk about on the podcast is balance. Some people believe that being all in on something is the way to go, and others believe that um, training in life and sports are to be looked at as like a triangle. And
Mhm.
there's life, there's training, and there's family or other stuff as the 3 points of the triangle. Um, where do you fall on that spectrum?
I actually think it's impossible to be all in. I think it's definitely a triangle or some sort of, there's definitely a shape to it. It's a balancing act. And I think if you try to be all in, if there's something in your life that goes wrong, like if there's something that happens in your family or if there's something that happens with work, it affects you more because you think you're all into something and it's like it's a distraction from your life. I think it's harder to find that balance when you have that mindset. That's just for me personally, but yeah, I definitely think it's a balancing act. And I think you know what you do at work who you are at home, those translate into other areas of your life, including running, and vice versa. Like who you are as a runner, like the values that you have when you toe the line, I think, those don't just disappear when you're done running. I think you have those same values at home and you have those same values at work too. And I think that's why runners and athletes in general are just such good workers, because they're so used to it. So I think it definitely is a balancing act for sure.
I love it. And I totally agree. Last question. What do you wish people knew about you?
I wish people knew that I don't know. I guess I don't really like being referred to as, I guess from an identity standpoint, just being like, she's a track athlete, or she's a nurse. I don't think I like being identified by one thing. I think we're all like multifaceted individuals and we're capable of a lot. I think it's the same thing coming from like, attaching somebody to a number or their PR. I think, there's so much more than that. So I hope that people don't do that to me or to anybody. I hope you kind of acknowledge like the person first. So yeah, I guess that's it.
I love that. I think that's my favorite answer of
Thanks.
of
We've covered a
100 plus
lot. We've
episodes.
gotten really deep.
That's the goal. I think that there's so much small talk, and there's so much like, oh yeah, tell me about the race you ran and the this and that. And there's definitely a time and a place for that. And maybe it's because I've been living on my own for a month and not, seeing other people, but I like these deep conversations, and I like to hear what makes people tick and what makes them unique. And I think, as you said, there's so much more to people than just being a runner or just being a blah blah blah. So it's a privilege to be able to share that with people. So thanks for taking the time to chat.
It really is. No, thank you. These are great questions. I've really enjoyed this a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully see you out on a track at some point soon. I live a mile from that beautiful track in BU. So at BU. So maybe,
awesome.
Maybe there at some point. So
thanks. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hopefully in the near future, there will be races and such.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run. And in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.